Alright, welcome back. We're doing some pruning today on these cherry trees here. So the reason that we're pruning is to get a good quality timber tree in the future. So you want something that's quite straight because that makes it easier to make into planks, for example, which then you can turn into furniture. And you need to prune off these bottom branches to make sure the effort goes into the main timber, the main stem here, rather than growing these even thicker, but also because this will affect the quality of the timber inside the main trunk as well, which will mean it becomes weaker, for example. So we've been cutting off these bottom branches here. As you can see on this tree over here, they were quite small generally, except on this one we've actually had quite a thicker branch higher up, which you can see we've just cut this one off here. And generally with these branches we're cutting them fairly close to the I keep forgetting here, the trunk itself, and these ones are not a great example. Maybe we should go and we'll come have a quick look over here. I've got this massive saw here. This is one we just done, and you can see here where the cut's slightly angled outwards, and you've got the collar of the branch itself, so it's just going from quite close to the trunk here, slightly further outwards. But it kind of does depend because all the branches grow slightly differently. And here we go, actually this one's even better than the one we're doing at the moment. It's already a bit thicker. So these are the trees that were planted 20 years ago, and it's really straight up until that point up here, so hopefully we'll get a good amount of timber off that in the future. Right, we haven't quite finished doing this one yet, so I'm going to cut some of these up here. So we've got, this is the saw which we're using to get to these higher branches here, and we can actually extend it even more than this. And if we go up here, so these branches, sometimes we cut them a bit further away to start with, which I'll just do on this one to show you, just to make sure that if the branch is too heavy it's not going to rip the bark back into the main trunk, because that will damage the quality of the timber you could potentially get out in the future. But I'm not quite sure it's going to work with this one because it's quite small, as you can see. So that one's come off, and now we can go a bit closer to the trunk itself. Hopefully this camera is going to pick this up because it's quite far away. We're probably 3 meters off the ground here, so you get a nice clean cut there. And I'll just do another one here. And then you're probably asking, well, how far do you know how to cut the branches up the tree? We want to cut up to 2/3 above the ground, so we're leaving about at least 1/3 of the tree, of the canopy higher up. And of course, because we need the leaves on the tree to do the photosynthesis and to help the trunk grow. So we might come back here in maybe another 10 years time when it's growing even higher up and cut a few more branches higher up of. And generally we're looking for at least 3 meters. So from the ground, at least 3 meters up, because then you're going to get enough timber to make it worthwhile doing in terms of creating the planks that you need to create furniture. So that's in cherry, they like using the wood in furniture making because it's got a nice grain to it. And we can just look at this one over here, which is maybe a bad example. So here we've got like a big split just here, a big forking of the trunk here. So this is probably not going to be such a great timber tree. I mean, maybe we will try it. We can cut this one off, but there's a risk that it might just damage the tree because it's a bit low down. Whereas this fork up here is that's at least 3 meters off the ground. So I mean, we could give that one a go. But some of these other ones are a bit wonky. So we've got a cherry over here, and you can see it's not quite straight. And that doesn't mean it couldn't be useful for something, but it means it's like a more speciality timber in terms of maybe somebody wants to bend in a certain place, but it's in a way it's less valuable, because if you can grow the tree straighter, it's got more potential uses. And we haven't got in this woodland that's 20 years old, we haven't got so many trees we can actually prune. So although maybe we've taken off, like, I don't know, is it 1,000, 2,000 tree tubes, a lot of the trees are not really going to be good timber trees because of how they've grown to start with, or they're ash trees like the ones over there in the distance. So, and with ash dieback, we're probably going to lose quite a lot of them. But we might, I think we'll probably prune a few of them that look healthier. Potentially they're going to survive. And of course, just because the trees aren't any good for timber doesn't mean we're just going to be cutting the rest of them down. It's still good for biodiversity purposes, for creating that woodland feeling itself. But we will potentially in places be taking out some of the trees that are closer to the trees we're trying to grow for timber, just to give the trees we're growing for timber more space, more light, more access to nutrients from the soils. So here I don't think we're going to cut any of these ones out, other ones out at the moment. Although, yeah, maybe we'll get some advice on that. We're doing the easy job first in terms of pruning these branches off, and then we'll probably see what our forester thinks in terms of whether we should take any of these other ones out to leave that space. Right, hopefully that's useful, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and I'll catch you in the next video.